And I'm going to turn off the ability to unmute yourselves so that I have charge of that. So some of you may know that I started Hidden Glen Folk School 3 years ago. And I had just about 6 months or so, I think, going before the pandemic kind of threw a bit of a wrench in it. So there's been kind of some sporadicness about it, but I've just finished the first complete academic year program where I've set up a sequence of classes. And when I started out this year, I made a special package and said, if you want to buy in for the full year, you'll get everything, plus a little bit of extra time with me to do something, to do a little student project. And then you can present it. So this is the time when those 3 students who signed up for the full package are presenting just about themselves, really, and the kind of work that they've been doing and things they've been thinking about. And I've had, a great selection of students from around the world, and some of them have, more specific interests than others, but some have, a really broad interest to learn more about Scottish Gaelic culture in a very broad way. And so the courses that I have going, that I've set up in this 1-year program, are, first of all, kind of a brief foundation course. It's about 4 weeks long. And then there's a course I call Reclaiming the Roots, which is a very kind of in-depth look at Gaelic indigeneity, about how Gaelic culture is molded to fit Scottish Highland environment and landscape and cosmology and so on, those kind of connections. And then the next course is called Radicalizing the Roots, because what we look at are the intersections between Scottish Highland history and culture and things like empire, coloniality, and race. And then the next course that I teach is a course on the diaspora, how Scottish Highlanders ended up in so many of the places that you're at, whether it be the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And then after that, we do a folklore class looking at the tales as tales in various genres. So this year, I was also doing ceilidhs on specific themes or topics, and these brave folks have been involved in all of those things. So what I like the participants, I try to use the term participants because these are, fully formed people with their own interesting experiences and backgrounds, who have a lot to share of themselves with all of us. So saying student, feels a little bit like underwhelming or underrepresenting the amount that they contribute to the course. And one of the things that I enjoy the most about holding these courses is just getting to know people and know their backgrounds and learning from them and seeing what unique experiences and perspectives they have to contribute to these topics. So Shiak and Charlie, I don't know if one of you wants to go first. There's Cindy. Shiak, Charlie, one of you feel like you're ready to go or need to go while your energy is flowing? No, Charlie's indicating they are not particularly have to go first. So Shiak, are you okay to go first? So what I'm hoping that the 3 participants might do is just say a little bit about themselves and what brings them to Scottish Highland, Scottish Gaelic culture, what kind of raises the interest, and what they've been doing and how they see the courses as having informed their understanding and hopefully kind of contribute to something kind of specific and tangible that they can share with you. So Shiak, are you, I think, sorry, I actually have to do it. I have to unmute for you, I think.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I was trying to unmute. It was like, oh. Cool. Hi, everybody. My name is Shiak, and I have been in the year-long program, as Michael says, about the Scottish Gaelic cultural teachings. And so my name is Shiak. I am in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, US. It's also the lands of the Nooksack and the Lummi Nation. And the spirits of place, I would say, are some of the biggest motivators and I would say the push that got me looking at wanting to know more about Scottish culture, because I didn't know a lot about where I was from other than Europe, Germany and Poland. But part of me, a deeper part of me, knew there was something more to that because I felt really drawn to Scottish culture. And my deep connection to the land here where I live in the Pacific Northwest really got me noticing that I had to follow my own heritage and to see where my people were from, because it was like this pull to land was really driving me. So I am so incredibly nervous. I can't believe this. I don't even know how to talk right now. Sorry. I got involved in genealogy to try to figure out where my people were from. And I did find out that many, many generations back, my people also came from England and Scotland. And so I was noticing during the Scottish diaspora course that I felt like I didn't belong to that group of people because my people had come over like hundreds of years before the 1800s or so is what was in the course materials. But the more I read and the more I discovered that it was this deep longing to be with the land and feeling displaced from your own land is what that I was feeling was going on inside myself. And that was in common with my people as well. And so it kind of helped me to not feel like I didn't belong. It was more like the land was actually calling me home to that. I am also an artist and an ancestral lineage healing practitioner. And one of the things that Michael helped me do was to write a prayer to the ancestors in Gaelic so that I could help invoke these ancestors who that was a big part of how they revered, their families was to call in their own people, in this way by acknowledging, the lines of people that they come from. It was their way of acknowledging their people. And so maybe that'll calm me down a little bit if I can just go ahead and invoke some support from the ancestors. And I'm going to use my cheat notes because I'm nervous. So, a hengshren osta and yolish vor, maser tole, hashina kiri orev le durak a kriya ching nar lahed. Ha argulorov akas hashin tankyo. Hashina keshta kreva hanaden. Hashina keshta kreva hanaveden. Gumbi ag pishak gak dunya akin. O ancient elders of great wisdom, if it is your will, we are seeking you with the sincerity of our hearts to come into our presence. We love you and we are grateful. We are listening to you, O grandfathers. We are listening to you, O grandmothers. May we all enjoy prosperity. So thank you, Michael, for helping me access that. It feels like a depth of ancestors standing behind me when I am able to call them, in this way. And a lot of the people that I've sat in group and circle with, they all comment that they're really pleased to hear the language. They're feeling connections with their own people intuitively, just from having the power invoked in the native tongue. So I'm really grateful for that. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight about what I learned in the courses was that I wasn't sure, like I said, I wasn't sure that I belonged in Scottish culture in any way, because it was like so far back and I thought I was Polish. And but what I started to see was I was seeing myself in the faces of my people by the things that they did and valued, like the traditions of praising the landscapes and having conversations like a love language and the poetry with the spirits of place and the landscape. And that really resonated with me a lot, because I've written quite a few songs about my love for the land. So I felt like, oh, this has been handed down to me, right? It was something that I could recognize. And also as a healer and doing the ancestral lineage healing work, just understanding the power of invoking lineage, and how also honoring ancestors in song and in story, and interacting really closely with spirits in the other world, that the ancestors also live in the other world with the fairies and other beings that are very important to not only just, it's like the medicine ways and the magic ways, and also just the poetry and the song, and how people would live their lives around interacting with the spirits in nature. So I wanted to share a song that I wrote because it's all about loving the land. This sacred circle of which I am a part is forever opening and turning in my heart. Bless me, wind, bless me, rain, reach for the stars, take me home again, raise your wings to the sky, feel the winds rushing by, moving with the drum, dreaming with the sound, feel the spirit call, dancing all around, raise your wings to the sky, feel the winds rushing by, singing with the trees, standing side by side, feel the rhythm grow, flowing in their tides, mystery set me free, my soul is home when you're with me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. This sacred circle of which I am a part is forever opening and turning in my heart, turning in my heart, turning in my heart. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, ancestors, for supporting me in my journey into finding belonging through art and culture and language. And yeah, I've been a student for a few years of Scottish Gaelic. I'm just through an app, so it's not like the real sort of in-person classes that someday I hope to take with others and learn some conversational skills. So, but it's really been fantastic, Michael, for being in these courses, and I'd love to take some of them again, because it's just the community that's been formed there has been really lovely. So thank you.
Thank you, Chiak. And don't go yet. I didn't know that you were a singer. And you were saying, "Oh, I feel so nervous," and then you just like performed the song perfectly. So
I can't talk.
that was really awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of stunned. Do you want to
help me with the Gaelic language, and I'll sing it in Gaelic?
Do you want to say something about the artwork behind you, because it's just so prominent and it connects.
It does connect. I started this work of art several years ago, and it's not even finished. It's like, this is the gesso and this is the ground, but it wants to be this way. I was doing an abstract painting study, and so we were getting into what's the emotion of what you want to express. And I wanted to express what it felt like to be loved by the ancestors. And I hadn't even began my journey with ancestral lineage healing at that point. But what has arisen is that these are my four primary lineages of ancestors. My mother's mother and my father's father, my mother's father and my father's mother's people. And they are here behind me, supporting me in my work. And the beautiful thing about these images is these are plaster casts of my own face, and over time, I cut them as profiles and put them up. Over time, they have cured and dried on the canvas, and they actually have shaped into they really look like the faces of my father, my grandfather, and my mother. And so I'm astounded by the way that the mystery works with art and magic. So thank you.
Teàrlach, fashion fear. Thank you. That was really, really excellent. So Charlie, are you okay to go next and kind of introduce yourself similarly and say a few things? Okay, awesome. I'm very pleased to introduce to the Zoom stage, Charlie Murray.
Hello. That was amazing, Chiak. Thank you. I realized I didn't put, I wrote out everything because I know I'm not going to remember anything I intended to say. But I realized I didn't put anything in about, that like connection to ancestral space and kind of the spiritual aspects of things. And that's definitely, I would echo what Chiak said on that sort of stuff. Now I'm going to read out, and I won't be able to see anyone's face, and that's probably better for me. I am also very nervous, but it should be fine. Hello, is Teàrlach mac Anndra, Anndra Tia na Garagawongo and Drasta, agus Rugagni Tia na Darawal. And you be me levig Hiad Skilach from Project Uragam. Translation, hello, my name is Charlie Murray. I'm on Garagawongo land right now, and I was born on Darawal land. Today I'll be reading the first story from my new project. So the project is called Seacht or 7 Stories, and I hope to use each story to view this particular ancestor of mine through a different lens, with each of those using different forms of storytelling. And this first one takes the form of an interpretation of the traditional Gaelic praise poem. Morantang Vehicle, many thanks to Michael for the many hours of teaching, discussion, exploration, and patient explanations. I've used a real cross-section of the resources you've offered over the past year and a half to develop this, from the notes I took in the intro, reclaiming folktales courses, to your book Warriors of the Word, and with a grounding in the detailed picture of traditional Highland life you've painted in all the classes and Kayleys. It's all helped me understand the context my ancestors would have existed in and around, and allowed me space to think critically about both the colonialism they experienced and the colonialism they perpetuated. I initially came to these classes because I wanted historical context for the language I was starting to learn, and I noticed that your sources were the only ones easily available to me that seemed to address those nuances unflinchingly. I remember being in the intro and reclaiming classes like over a year ago now, and the whole time being like, can we talk about colonialism yet? Here's my like absolute essay of thoughts on the topic. And then you entertaining it being, that's coming, don't worry. And then hitting the radicalizing course and being like, oh, right, you've just given me like this really good foundation to understand the context of this stuff, and I can actually engage meaningfully now. Almost like these courses are carefully planned out or something. So to introduce the context for the poem, which is something that is done at Kayleys before any good story. Thomas Murray was born in Ballaston, Limerick in July 1735, and then later moved up the road to Shanagolden, I think, to raise a family. His family likely came from the glens around Blair Athol in the Scottish Highlands, but his grandfather's participation in the Jacobite side of the Battle of the Boyne led to the family's exile and subsequent shelter in Ireland. He himself was a Jacobite, so a proponent of the return of the Scottish crown to the Stuarts and Bonnie Prince Charlie. And he lost a leg in a Jacobite uprising, and his son apparently had to hold him down while the surgeon amputated it by lamplight. It's all a bit intense. The English soldiers in his town seemed to consider him a formidable member of the community, and they're later quoted calling him a testy one-legged rebel, a title I can only hope to achieve in my own lifetime. He was denied any assistance from the state, so his 9 sons grew poor and hungry enough to eventually later join the British Army, and that began the unfortunate legacy of pride in service to that institution, which was passed all the way down to family members in my own lifetime. What follows is a work in progress. Since I'm way not as advanced in my Gaelic as a poem like this would require, it's instead emulating an English translation of traditional Gaelic praise poetry. As I've mentioned, it's the first of 7 stories I hope to tell from many varied perspectives on this man. Thomas is the brother of my direct ancestor, Patrick Murray, and I don't know much about him other than what I've told you. Thankfully, Gaelic praise poetry, as I've learned, is more about the value and the author and audience places in the person rather than realistic portrayals of details of their life. It paints the subject as a hero figure and proclaims their virtues, lays out why they should be appreciated. In writing this, I'm not telling like the critical perspective that I do have on him. The honest account isn't really in the spirit of this style of poetry. Instead, I hope to belatedly honor him in a way it didn't seem like he was honored in life, and also give respect to his ties to a homeland he was displaced from and likely never saw. Here it is. In Shanagolden, there is a man who stands so tall and proud as an oak. He is Thomas Murray, fertile seed of the forests of Beniglo, from Athol folk in the tree-filled pass of Gillicranky. He was raised on the knee of the Shannon, and although apart from his land and robbed unjustly of a limb by those cowardly trees without leaf or fruit, he is well established here, and his leaves shelter many families. Now go hungry, and his wife is content and comfortable. His grand house on the hill is always brightly lit, and anyone who passes may eat their fill. In Shanagolden, he is widely known, by friend and by enemy, and the thunder that follows him waters bountiful crops and leaves English soldiers sodden and afraid. If he were in the golden green glens of Athol, amongst the Scots pine forests of his grandfather's youth, he would lead the brave men in cattle raids and fight the ignoble intruders and would have easy victory. His sword would be sharp and shining, and he would wield it skillfully. And in the songs sung by his grandsons, these deeds would be well remembered. In leadership, he is known to exceed Fionn, and like the great leader, he will one day return to the heathered hills to restore the great kingdom of the Gaels. The red-haired prince knows well Thomas's virtue and shows favor to him when they drink and feast together. Although the prince is away over the water, he will always return to the warm embrace of Thomas. The son of Athol's glens is kind and brave. His feats will be known after his death, and his name will be heard in the halls and ceilidh houses of his descendants. It is whispered in the town that upon his death, he will join the Fianna in their cave beneath the fairy hills, awaiting a time when he may hear the call of the Gaels and be roused to life once more. The end.
That was really excellent, Charlie. I really like how you put that together. And
Thank you.
I don't know if you'd be comfortable or willing to share it in the chat box, but it's got just so many great motifs and symbols and images that are very dominant and important in Gaelic panegyric. So I think that was really excellent. Yeah, I'm hoping that you all will be willing to take questions afterwards. I'm sure that people might have other things they want to know about you. But do you want to say anything, Charlie, about, I mean, it seems to me that part of your engagement in this and part of your general kind of life mission has to do with, the Indigenous people, where you are, and how does learning what we've been, working on together, how does that connect to or inform your own work with the Native peoples of Australia?
Yeah, so my very brief political history here is like in 2015, I think I was like 19 or 20. I was about to be homeless. I went to the Redfern 10 Embassy, which is an Aboriginal protest camp that was set up in the middle of Sydney City. And I was just looking to kind of develop politically, but also just give a hand where it was needed. And that was really foundational for kind of me growing into the person I am today. And a lot of the work there, I realized had to be done on myself as well. And something that's been consistent in my relationships with Aboriginal people, friends of mine, has been just like, you've got to find out who you are, like where you come from. Because like a lot of people try to ally themselves with Aboriginal people and the justice movements by basically leeching their culture, their connection to the land, all that sort of stuff. And it's a really shallow attempt at that, where if they actually engaged with where they come from, who they come from, if we engaged with that, it would be a lot of a deeper connection to that. And I found that kind of digging that up for myself has allowed like more meaningful solidarity with my mates and with other Aboriginal people on this land. So yeah, there's a lot more detail, and I've got like 3 notebooks trying to figure out how it all comes together in my brain, but that's where I'll leave that.
Thank you, Charlie. I hope you don't mind my
paste
asking, but
in 2 parts the into the chat.
thank you, Charlie. Yeah, I hope you don't mind my asking, but it seemed to me like that's just such an important part of how you connected and how you also approach these issues. So thank you for giving us that backstory.
Totally.
Avali, Cindy, are you okay with this being recorded? I hope you don't mind. Okay, excellent. So would you mind introducing yourself and saying something about where you're from and what interested you in Gaelic and how you came to Hidden Glen, and what you've kind of gained from the courses? And I see that you're still kidnapped by that pipe band. I hope you can find somebody to set you free out of their closet.
Yeah, that's where I am. Yeah, so I'm Cindy Hamilton in English, and I go by Màili, my middle name in Gaelic. I wanted to acknowledge my home is on the ancestral and traditional territories of Indigenous nations, of many Indigenous nations, including the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, the Chiniki, Bearspaw, Wesley, as well as the Tsuut'ina nations. And when I started learning about land acknowledgements, it amazed me at how many nations met in my city, Calgary. But today I am in Unamaki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And it's so exciting to experience just being in a different land and seeing the different relationship between the people, all the people here in Cape Breton. I came from my home. So I'm also reading from notes because I'm nervous. I came from my home in Calgary to Cape Breton a month ago, and I've been in an immersion course called An Cuairt Saboki, basically course immersion, at the College na Gaelic, the Gaelic College in St. Anne's in Nova Scotia. And the course runs throughout May, and my last day here is tomorrow. So as you noticed, here I am surrounded by drums, and my computer is sitting on an accordion box, and there's boxes of, that's sheet music, old fiddle bows. And I'm glad there was a fiddle bow here because I threw it when I was doing laundry. I lost a sock behind the laundry machine and I had to fish it out, and I needed a fiddle bow. So there you go. And janitorial supplies. So I'm in the Gaelic College pipe band storage closet in the basement of student accommodations. So I thought this would be the quietest spot tonight because tonight is actually the final and biggest Thursday night Kaylee of the month for our immersion. And when I left, ha huladunya spree vor. Everybody was on a big spree. So the music was flowing, the songs were flowing, and the drink was flowing. So I have a feeling that it's going to be loud when people start coming back. I've tried to find a quiet corner, so they're on a bit of a tear. The immersion experience has been really intense, but it's been fun. And I have to admit, it feels really strange to be speaking English. Like I feel like I've been given the gift of the bionic gift of flight. Like after kind of struggling to speak in only Gaelic. So this is, it's very light right now. But I'm going to talk about what made me want to learn about Highland Gaelic culture and tradition, and about the courses I took with you, Michael, and about leading Gaelic classes in Calgary. So what made me want to learn about Highland and Gaelic culture and tradition in the first place? So my husband, I was nervous about this. So I texted my husband and he said, well, your ancestors drove you to it. And I was like, well, you can't just say one sentence. There's more to it. But I feel like there's a real truth in that. So when I lost family members that were dear to me, I noticed there were piles of photographs and notes and newspaper clippings and postcards and letters left behind. And there was even a diary in one instance. And I started to see pictures of the same people surface over all the years. And I started hearing stories repeated and stories about these people, their lives, the places where they came from. And it intrigued me every time the story was repeated. And every time that I saw a different photo with that same person, dots got connected. And I decided I wanted to visit where they lived and put my feet on the land that they once worked and look out at the ocean, or maybe not the ocean, maybe the fields. And the hills, to see the views that they saw when they opened their front door and they went out in the morning. So several years ago, finally, in my old age, I am in my old, half a century later, after being born, I finally did this. I went and I just did it. And when I put my feet on the grass, beside the ruins of the Stonecroft house where my great-grandfather was born, that was when the first domino kind of fell. And the energy that I felt and the depth of wondering I had for who they were, what they thought, what they did, what hardships did they endure, who they loved, who they lost, what was did they have a hobby? Like, all these questions, and it just sparked something in me. It sparked, a little fire started, and I thought, okay, well, I can learn their language as a way of connecting with these people and find my roots. And it took me some time. I'm a little bit of a leshkadere sometimes. So it took me 7 years to find courses, and I found a native speaker in my city, and she's born in Lewis. She was born in Carloway, and mere months after I started learning with her, like just 3 months, the pandemic hit and in-person classes stopped. So it just, and at the same time, it just so happened to coincide with my decision to retire. So I'd lost 3 family members within 2 years, and they were all close. And I realized precious moments of life couldn't be wasted in the job that I was in. And I had time on my hands now that I was retired. And then the in-person classes stopped. And I was on a mission to find something and keep myself busy. So I tried books, but I'm not motivated without somebody sort of engaging with me. Again, that Leshkadel sort of mentality. I need somebody pushing me. So I researched all the possibilities and decided to study with books. And then I decided to register with online classes at the Gaelic College here in Nova Scotia. And if it weren't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have found these courses at the college. I would have been moving at a slow pace. So I started learning language online, and fate handed me the most amazing teacher, and that was Rich Hill in Seattle. And he doesn't even know that he's in this speech, but man, he, instead of just working through the textbook, he wove color and he wove life in between the lines of the text in the lesson plans. And he shared songs and he shared stories and folklore and traditions from old holidays. And I started picking branches from my rowan tree at certain times of year and putting crosses up at the top of the door, in the back and the front. And yeah, he just added a magic he added the heartbeat to Gaelic for me. And at the same time, some of my classmates became lifelong friends that I'm still in contact with every day, trying to speak Gaelic, of course. So when in-person classes started up again, I met with Donna, my 82-year-old teacher, and she was blown away at how far I'd come during a period of complete lockdown. And little did I know that she wanted a successor so she could retire from teaching Gaelic. And by this point, I was deep into the journey, and but I felt somehow that I wasn't well-rounded. I felt like it was just language and song, but I felt like there was something missing. So I felt if I was going to start teaching the language, I should know a lot more about the history and the true history and the real traditions of the Gaels. And there was no Celtic Studies department at the University of Calgary, and I saw value in learning Gaelic history from their point of view, not from somebody knowledgeable about like the history of the peoples of the United Kingdom. Like that was too cookie cutter and too general, and it didn't really cover I didn't think it gave proper justice to the Gaelic point of view. And that was just a spidey sense back then. But then I stumbled on a presentation by Lewis McKinnon called The Intro to the Gaels of Nova Scotia. And one of the attendees mentioned in the chat, have you heard of the Hidden Glen Folk School? And I vaguely heard about the courses, but I hadn't. So I saved the chat and I researched it, and I thought, this is what I'm looking for sure. Like something that you can't find at a university, like where you don't have a Celtic Studies department, where somebody's not fully trained or focused on the Gaels. So taking the full year of courses at the Hidden Glen, and I've said this before, it's been literally the richest learning year of my life, and I've been to university twice. I had to take a bunch of garbage electives, but this time it's just awesome to be so focused on what I'm looking for. The year, along with like song classes and old holidays, so I took courses about song, old holidays, herbalism, language, but literally it's been the richest learning year of my life, and this course kind of pulled everything together, or these courses pulled everything together, and it makes my Gaelic journey like more complete or more true, more honest. And because I'm teaching Gaelic, I feel responsible for bringing more than just language to people. And I feel as though now I'll be able to introduce like a more accurate history than what people end up believing. And literally, they really end up believing what's in movies and what they see at the Highland Games. And which, yeah, I feel like I have to go back and I'm going to have to do a lot of review to introduce these topics in a gentle way. But when I took the courses, the one thing that I really appreciated was the order that they were offered in. So Michael, you started with an introduction. It was almost like riding a bike. So you gave us training wheels and you just sort of introduced it. And then you took the training wheels off and we went into reclaiming the roots. And so we were kind of riding without the training wheels. And then we went into radicalizing the roots. And that was the course that was challenging to me. But you let us down gently with the diaspora and folktales. But it's the radicalizing the roots course that was so the most challenging, but personally the most important, because I thought I understood that stuff. And I don't think I understood it. I think I came in naive. I think I thought I understood what is whiteness, what is colonialism, what is empire, what is imperialism. I still feel like I need to dig in deeper and have a constant eye on it. And I think coming to terms with what happened to the Gaelic people was really difficult for me, and perhaps more difficult because I know that so few people really understand what happened. And they look at the tartan and the bagpipes and Tartan Day and St. Andrew's Day, but so few people really deeply understand what happened to the Gaelic people. And there's a quote from the readings that I saved that I have here that I pin up on my desktop so I can look at it every day. If the millions of North American Gaels with Gaelic ancestry now absorbed into whiteness can understand the ethnocidal injustices perpetrated on their own ancestors as an attack on their humanity and on their legitimate culture and identity, that can aid in building bridges of empathy to other victims of colonialism. So given what happened to the Gaels, how can we step up for others that are currently undergoing similar injustices? So I'm looking forward to taking what I've learned in these courses and sharing with friends and family and students of Gaelic without having intense debate, doing it gently. Yeah, so these courses have just they've literally changed. They've been life-changing. They're the thread that kind of weaves everything together for me in teaching and sharing with others. And so I did a whole lot of talking about that. And then I have like a mini thing about what I'm doing in Calgary. So basically, I only just started my Gaelic journey in November of 2019. And since then, I've been experiencing a lot, and it's been really emotional for me. People talk about stars aligning, and it's uncanny how many stars aligned to see me at this spot in this time. So the first star to fall into place was my first Gaelic teacher, and her name is Donna Gillespie. She's 82 years old, and she's from Carloway in Lewis. And I called to try to register for classes with her, Gaelic classes, and she asked me so many questions. It was like an interview, and I think she just wanted to see how serious I was about Gaelic. And I answered the questions diligently because she was a tough Lewis grandma. There's no crossing her. And the second star to align was the pandemic. And I know a lot of people don't think of it as a star aligning, but if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have been moving slowly with only one Gaelic class per week for 40 minutes. And the pandemic is what made me find some faster paced classes. And I ended up in level 1 at the College na Gaelic. And the third star to align was I made the decision to retire a couple of years early. I had a stressful year at work, job cuts. I was working 11 hours a day, getting paid for 8. And I was part of this machine that I didn't think was healthy, and it was starting to have effects on my physical health. So I put in my notice, and Gaelic had my full attention. And when I put in my notice, I started laughing. It was the dream come true for many people, laughing at your boss and walking out of the office, but I did it on good terms. So the fourth star to align was the teacher that I was placed with in level 1, and that's Rich Hill. And he showed me the magic in Gaelic and the beauty of its people. He gave Gaelic and all of the things that surrounded a heartbeat. The fifth star is probably he should be the first star, but the fifth star is my husband. I'm doing it in chronological order. So he gives me all the time, and probably too much time, I need to study Gaelic language and work on songs, read about herbalism in the Highlands, spend a month without me so I can attend immersion. He's back in Calgary, and he's seriously neglected. So he really deserves, I couldn't be more thankful for what I've got there. I could go on about all the stars aligning, but it would be 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, and that just gets tired, but you get my point. Everything literally just fell into place, and it's like it was magic. But the Hidden Glen courses literally were another aligning star. And they helped me bring something to people other than just the language. They helped me bring the culture and the real history, not just what we read or what we've been taught in the typical books that have never been rewritten. And I think that's really important for people. And I think that I wish it was more widespread. So I started teaching Gaelic in my neighborhood during a relaxing of the restrictions in the pandemic of summer 2020. And there was a neighborhood sharing of skills, song, plays, games at houses, music, whatever you had to offer. You would open your house up and people would walk by and they would come to your house. So I submitted an event called Gaelic in the Garden or Gaelic in the Garage if it's raining. parents and kids showed up, and it was so gorgeous out. So it was in the garden, and I taught simple words, and we played Pictionary in Gaelic. And another round I taught Kimera Hau and all the various responses to how are you doing? And I literally didn't think I'd have a turnout of numbers better than Halloween. Like, I had more people show up for this than Halloween. And this event taught me that I can stand up and I can bring Gaelic to Calgary in any way that works, in any way I want, outside of Scottish society. But I was asked to teach at the society. So I teach absolute beginners there, and I learned a lot from my own teachers. And I think one of the big things is enthusiasm. And I just love that the students hang around after class waiting for me to chat and ask questions and email me questions and just want to chat in Gaelic. And the look on their faces when they learn and when they're struggling with something, and then some structure, just finally they get it and they light up, and they're 60 years old. And it's like they're kids at Christmas that really, really, they get it. And it's exciting to see the excitement in your students. But recently, my teacher, Donna, poor thing, I mentioned she's 82. She hurt her back and she couldn't teach her own advanced class. So we have a fluent speaker here to help out, and he subbed for her, but she wrote an email to me and phoned me to deliver a message. And she said, "This shows me at my age that anything can happen, and it can happen suddenly. And it shows me that I need to stop teaching, and it's a perfect time. Adam can teach the advanced classes while you continue to build, but he will be leaving Calgary, and you're up. You're my biggest hope. I know you're afraid, but I have faith in you." And in all my life, I worked in jobs where I saw no purpose. I was simply putting food on the table. So now I have a job that pays nothing, but I've been handed the biggest honor. And to have Donna know that I'm carrying this on after she's gone, which is, I think that's what we're both thinking about, which is actually a sad thing. But I have to pause because this is hard. Yeah. So I never knew my dream before. I worked in an office and I didn't know my dream, but I never had a purpose in my life. And so for so many, it's career related, but that was lost on me because I chose the wrong career. So now here I am on the Gaelic path, and I've been handed this purpose by this native speaker from Lewis, and it's a dream come true. And it's such an honor. It's almost like she's handed me this sword somehow, and knighted me with the Gaelic language teaching journey. But I finally have this purpose, and it's a dream come true. I feel like my dream is to become fluent, and now I feel like I have a story worth telling. It's not just about like working in an office and pumping out spreadsheets and deciding who's going to get fired. None of that garbage. But yeah, that's it. Shinakita. But a big PS. I want to thank you, Michael, for doing this work that you do. Like, it's literally mind-blowing. And I wish that universities across the world would start to teach this real history.
Papalat Gamora Valley, Bashin Erachka, Bashin Boyoch. Thanks very much. That was really lovely. Really appreciated your story and your journey. And I think, many of us that get involved in Gaelic have kind of similar think similar feelings that so much of kind of what we're told is supposed to be success, and you know, a successful life just feels pretty empty. And especially when you know, find something that is actually deep and rooted, and, you know, something that is that has real substance and yeah, real culture, rather than kind of this commercial stuff that we're spoon fed, that feels just very empty. So I really appreciate what the three participants told us, but I would like to open it up for other folks who might have questions for them or for me. Anybody have any questions that they would like to ask? And I guess if you raise your hand, I'll unmute you. Any questions, comments, or just comments too? Okay, sorry, Brant. Okay.
Just kind of a quick question while I've got it in my mind. I'll probably have something for the other two later, but Màili, do you have any kind of online presence for teaching Gaelic?
I'm trying. So
Okay.
part of my I'm trying to use the marketing that I took at university and use it in Gaelic's favor. And the only presence that I've got right now is on Facebook. And the way that I worded it was Gaelic in Facebook, so that that would be a first tagline or a first word that people would find. No website per se yet, but I think that I'm going to need to separate from my Scottish society because just given what I've learned here at the Hidden Glen courses, I need to have an independent way of teaching Gaelic to people that don't want to be part of a society.
Sure.
Because a lot of people don't want to be part of this patriarchal.
I hear that. Part of the reason I wanted to ask is because I don't know how long ago, 2 or 3 months ago, it's a job that's changed several times. I'm working for a friend of mine who, I'm not trying to sell you anything, I promise, but if you want to look me up on the Hidden Glen, I think you can probably find a way to contact me on there afterwards. But I'm actually working in the sphere of like teachers going independent online, and because it's related to Gaelic, I wouldn't mind donating, you know, what I learn and what I know about it. And that's setting up websites and pipelines and kind of the whole spectrum from free all the way to paid. So if you kind of you're just like, here's what I think I should be doing, and I don't know what to do, or I know I need a website, I don't know what to do with it, I could certainly stand to help you with that. So
that's awesome.
If you want to look me up on there, we can find some way to talk about it.
I will look you up.
All right.
Yeah, I'll say that one of the things that, you know, that I think has been very successful is just kind of community building. That at the beginning of, you know, every session, I try to let people check in and say how they're doing. And, you know, over the course of several weeks, you get to know people, and people feel hopefully, you know, comfortable just sharing their ideas and sharing their thoughts. And so that we, you know, so that becomes kind of a community engagement, a community experience, rather than just like me just summarizing facts, you know, that we're kind of doing things together. And so that's one thing I've really enjoyed, getting to know people. And although sometimes the Mighty Networks framework platform that we use can be kind of clunky and hard to learn, but it does have good features, like being able to directly have communications with people and things like that. So there are some good things about it, I think, and it's worth keeping. Other questions or comments for folks? Jim, did you let me I think you're unmuted, Jim. Did you want to ask something to somebody?
No, I was just going to comment.
Sure.
Learn more during this event than all the pre-session chats that we've had over the last year. I quite enjoyed it.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I was especially blown away by Shiak's song. I thought, oh my God, she's a singer. I didn't. I know that there are some of you who are singers. So learned something I didn't, I thought I would have known by now.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions for folks? Charlie.
I was just going to say too, I have like met friends through here too. Like Danny and I have been chatting in Gaelic through Instagram a bunch, and I've gone to like some of the Nova Scotia Gaels in the recent classes have put up a lot of resources in the chat, and one of them was the pop-up Gaeltach, which I think Omar runs, and been going to that at like 1 a.m. Every Friday night, Saturday morning. And like just like the little connections you make to the rest of the network. It's like that endless chain that I was talking about, and links in the chat, and then you find this other like wellspring of knowledge.
Yeah, so it really has been kind of a networking, social network experience, as well as hopefully, you know, a good learning experience as well. Let's see. Margaret has asked me to say an overview of what I want to accomplish in setting up the Hidden Glen program and how I laid out the courses. So I hope that I've laid out the courses in a kind of a logical sequence. And, you know, a few people have kind of referred to their experience of that. And the very first course is sort of a general foundation course for people, because a lot of people don't know that Scotland is like home to multiple ethnic groups, and the Gaels are one of those. And for example, and how did the difference between Highland and Lowland emerge, and what does that mean, and things like that. And then the next course allows people to go deeper into, you know, the specifics of Gaelic culture and the aspects of Gaelic that are relate to indigeneity. So the landscape and human ecology and how that connects to cosmology and notions of the divine and things like that. And then the next course is Radicalizing the Roots. And so then we talk about kind of what happens when Gaeldom collides with empire and colonialism and race and things like that, whiteness and militarism. And then the next course, we talk about the diaspora, about people leaving the Highlands and going to places like North America and Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And then the last course is folk tales. So we read folk tales particularly as, you know, what kind of genres are they? And to a degree, we connect it to the previous themes that we talked about in other courses. So some of the courses require more background than others. Like, I really recommend that people take the Radicalizing the class after they've taken one of the previous ones. But, you know, I think the diaspora course really benefits from having done the Radicalizing course. But I feel like folk tales kind of stands alone. You can do that on its own. So that's a bit about kind of the course kind of sequence. And the projects can be anything at all that relates to, you know, like why people come to the courses. So, you know, for Shiak, for example, that relates to her specific engagement, you know, in her work and in life. And so I'm trying to sort of cater for what people's needs are. So it can be anything at all that they want to do, and I just try to facilitate that. And in terms of, you know, it's been really interesting to me that the variety of people who have come to the courses. I thought it would be largely older people who suddenly realize from a DNA test that they're Scottish. They want to find out what that means. But, you know, there's been a really interesting group of people who have been younger than I expected. Many of whom come because, you know, they're engaged with Indigenous groups, Indigenous communities, and they want to understand how their own ancestors intersect with that story and how that informed the experiences that led to where they are. So that's been a more common theme than I expected. And I think that's great because it gives people a real impetus for understanding these complexities. But it's a whole number of different reasons, any number of things. But those are common, I think, common themes. And a good number, I mean, over half of the people that have come to courses have been learning Gaelic to various degrees. So many of them on Duolingo, which means that they're on an app and they don't necessarily meet people in real life that are learning Gaelic. But at least there's been quite often some background to that, which is, very cool, because although, I'm not speaking Gaelic, obviously when I'm doing the courses, a lot of the materials, the primary sources are in Gaelic with translation. So, and so there's a question about ancestry. So certainly it's open to anybody at all who is interested, who wants to come. You don't have to have Scottish ancestry. And, it's certainly not assumed that people do. And many people have very mixed ancestry. It's certainly not at all about purity or about DNA. Language is always there in the background. But again, I don't assume that people are fluent at all. I'm certainly assume that people aren't afraid of it. People aren't afraid of seeing Gaelic names and words and phrases and so on. But I provide translations for everything that we do. Are there any more questions for our three speakers of the day, Shiak and Cindy / Màili and Teàrlach / Charlie? A question about Charlie's future literary output.
I have no idea. Good question. Probably on my computer and possibly not anywhere else, but we'll see. Yeah, Shiak, do you have any other songs?
Yeah, you're welcome to share another song if you would like, Shiak.
Actually, what's currently happening is with the ancestral healing work that I'm doing, my ancestors are asking me to write more songs. And actually, I'm very interested in learning some songs in Gaelic to sing them because when I was figuring out what I want to say tonight, I thought, I'll guide a little meditation to meet your ancestral landscape or something. I thought I was going to do that. And I'm like, no, you're going to sing. I was like, really? Okay. Yeah, actually, I would love to sing another song if people want to hear. There's one that wants to come through too. Let's see. Listen to the earth, ear upon the ground. Hear what she say. She's telling you all you ever need to know. Feel it in your heart. Sing it from your soul. Hear what she say. She's telling you all you ever need to know. Your veins are like the trunks of the trees. Reach into the core. The pulse of life runs through me. I will always be if you care for me. Take only what you need, only what you need.